Hi, my name's Renette Mitchell, and I am delighted to review Making March, the latest book by fellow Australian author Hayley Walsh. I just can't imagine any woman of virtually any age not loving this book. It's a hoot. We can all relate to the main character, Kate, and the trials and tribulations she goes through after she turns 40 on the 1st of February and has doubts about making it to March. Been there, done that, but not quite like Kate. Just when you think things couldn't get any worse, they do. Hayley Walsh is a gifted writer with a real talent for a wonderful turn of phrase. Her characters are real, we all know at least a couple of them, and we can all connect with some of the situations her main character becomes involved in. Who of us women hasn't tried to lose weight? Who of us women hasn't been involved in some way or other in a wedding party from hell? Who of us women hasn't been through a tough time with a teenage daughter? But Hayley makes us laugh about it. Making March is a great read if you're feeling good about life. An even better read if you're feeling hard done by. And a must read to find out if Kate makes it to March. I can't wait for Hayley's next book.
Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us once again for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, as always, is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I am Darren Kesenko, science fiction and horror author, reader, and one of your hosts and co-founders of Australian Book Lovers, coming to you today from corner country, perhaps very soon, depending on when the borders open, possibly yes. A duo at the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, if I pronounce that right. Probably not, good. But there we are.
And I am Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader and your other co-founder and host for today.
Yes.
And coming to you, as Darren said, from Wurundjeri, from Woiwurrung country.
Ah, there, you said it much more elegantly and professional than I did. But yes, who knows? There may be a actual recording in the same room in the near future as we move forward amazing. To, I'm not going to say normality, but let's just say back to one country. Yeah. And episode 36.
36 is a good number. It's 3 dozen, it's 2 18s, it's 4 9s. There's lots. 6 is twice of 3. It's a great number.
Well, I mean, 3 is a lucky number for me. But you're right, 36 is a lucky number. And I thought I might start looking into the numbers as we move forward with the podcast, because the beautiful thing about numbers is each one is going to be its own unique element or number.
Yes.
So now, I guess a couple of little things I saw about the number 36, which I thought was quite interesting.
Okay.
One, that Jewish tradition holds that the number 36 has had special significance since the beginning of time.
Right.
According to the Midrash, the light created by God on the first day of creation shone for exactly 36 hours.
Oh.
It was replaced by the light of the sun that was created on the 4th day. So there we go, something a little bit different there.
There you go.
But not only that, when it comes to angels, and yes, somehow down the rabbit hole, I came to angel numbers. So I don't know, maybe I'll put some cosmic sounds in this part. But the number 36, what does it mean? The angel number 36 is made of the energies of the numbers 3 and 6. Interesting observation there.
Yes.
The number 6 is a number which signifies joy and optimism, creativity, inspiration, communication, compassion, sociability, speech, increase, spontaneity, skills, self-expression, enthusiasm, expansion, etc. The number 3 is also the number of the ascended masters and the angelic realm. Not sure exactly what that means, but it sounds pretty cool. The number 6 is a number which signifies unconditional love, harmony and balance, family and home, gratitude, helping others, selflessness, responsibility, humanitarianism, compromise, self-sacrifice, material needs, creativity, and enthusiasm. So,
Wow.
Welcome to episode 36.
I'll never say I like a number ever again. We might spend the whole session on numerology.
I don't know, 37 could be interesting.
37? 37 is a much more odd number. Haha. No pun intended.
Well, 3 and 7 is 10, 10 is 1 and 0, it's a binary code, maybe there's a hidden meeting ready to kick off, maybe it's a key to some software algorithm that will erupt the dawn of a new age, but I doubt it. It just means we'll have to put a little bit of effort in to this one and then 37. But no, welcome to episode 36. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And
Indeed.
Yes, I think a very special guest that you had the honour of interviewing for this one.
Look, I did. It was just brilliant to chat with Anna Whateley. Anna is an Australian writer, of course, and one of the original members of the 6am writers group. And I'll talk a little bit more about it as it comes to her interview. But what I really loved reading about her first novel, her debut novel, which is called Peter Lyre's Rating Normal, is that it's about a girl who is neurodivergent. So that creates its own interest, but it also is really significant that Anna is writing from an own voices point of view. And I think that own voices is something that we've talked about before, but it's a term that was coined by YA author Corinne I'm going to say Duyvis, which is Duyvis, and she did it to refer to books about characters from underrepresented or marginalised groups in which the author shares the same identity. So basically the writing is inspired by the author's own experience and it's written from their perspective. So it started as a Twitter hashtag. Don't we love the writing community on Twitter? It was supposed to make it easier to find own voices books in kids' literature. So the other side of that is to remember that while it's a good representation of a group, it's also not entirely representative of everyone that identifies within that particular group. Anna has an alphabet of things that she lives with, I guess is the way to look at it. But it's also something really important following own voices authors and even following own voices people on Twitter, is that they don't necessarily want to be fixed. It's not seen as something, and this is for many people who live with a disability, is that don't try and fix me, but let me live in the world as I am and have the world be more accommodating to the diversity of people, which is a really interesting way to go.
Yeah, you're right. And I think because if for whatever reason life in general in the past and even today in the present causes people with, let's say, with differences that may not be familiar to the majority of people, if they want to then feel like they need to hide their differences or perhaps feel like those differences are a hindrance in some way, it also, I guess it follows that it makes it more difficult to explore those differences in yourself, and maybe, and in which case there's elements of yourself that you are one way or the other maybe not exploring as you should, and therefore you're not being able to really appreciate who you are as a whole self, based on perhaps social constructs that may or may not have any warrant at all to be, putting those sorts of burdens on somebody. For example, when you said with someone who feels they've got an alphabet of differences that don't align with a lot of other people's differences. So and I think the ability to explore yourself without fear of judgment or persecution or any of those sort of social unwanted elements that make you feel like you are not part of everybody, which is who wants to feel part of everybody. I think that's what it's all about, is being unique, but being able to be proudly unique. And we all have the right to be that, because I don't think any one of us is any better than anybody else. Each of us are made up of all of our flaws and our strengths and all the things in between. Yeah,
and it's interesting. You and I understand the power of words and stories, and we... now let's be careful here, because I won't say that we see ourselves in our stories, because you write a lot of horror. You're not a horrible person, so that doesn't work. But you can see a white male English speaking in many, many stories and in the stories that you read, and I can see a white female middle class in many of the stories that I read. Not so much of the older women, that's a little bit harder to find, but that's okay. And Own Voices is very much about giving children and young adults in particular the opportunity to see themselves in stories that they're reading and to know that the person behind the words is similar to them. So I remember when we spoke with Gary Lonsborough, who was our very first interview, and he talked about he would so love to have seen a gay Indigenous bloke, or teenager, a story about one when he was young, because it would have meant that there was somebody else like him out there. And he talked about having to look and find stories from American First Nations peoples to get that sense of, oh, hang on, that's me out there. And I think the chat with Anna is very similar in that she has on her website some absolutely beautiful reviews. There's one that says, I cried happy tears when I finished reading. It was so good and so validating to feel seen, to see someone like me written by someone like me. And I thought, yeah, really good.
And that's why one reason that I just have a passion for technology, and it's, I think moving forward, obviously technology is just going to keep continuing on leaps and bounds, but it's also going to have such profound and powerful changes or bring such profound and powerful changes to who we are as a species, who we are as individuals. So, for example, you're right. At the moment, when I write, I can only write as far as if I'm going to go in depth into experience. I'm going to draw on my own experiences. And yes, I'm a white male. But saying that, obviously that we have, I speak for myself, I've got lots of different characters that I write about encountering, and that's why I'm, obviously my impression, because I never like to really delve into anyone else's character too much because they are their own character. But for example, I was always comfortable if I went to a library, pre-internet or anything like that. I could usually find, I wanted to read a detective book, I wanted to read a sci-fi book, anything I wanted to read about space pirates, I could find those books. I knew they were going to be there. Yeah. And if I couldn't find it, there's no fear of me going up to the librarian and saying, I want to find a book about this or about that.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, say a First Nation or Indigenous person that wanted to know if there's a book out there, written by somebody who grew up, just exploring their sexuality. Pre-internet, I think it's not the sort of question you're going to go up to the librarian and ask. And it may not be, you're not going to ask your friends in high school, is anyone... do you know of anyone who's written a good book about XYZ that may have felt taboo back in the time?
Yeah.
Now, of course, with technology, you're only a Google search away. And I think that's the beautiful thing. I think the stories have always been there ready to be told. Now the audience is aware of the selection. The menu is... it's just expanded to such a great degree. Steak and potatoes, it's been there a long time, but oh my God, has that menu changed though?
Yes.
and there's no fear of looking and asking, I don't see such and such on the menu. Have you got anything in the back in the kitchen? And I was like, actually, we do, coming in November.
Yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful thing that moving forward, all those voices, anybody who wants to discover those, to explore those themes, those elements, those meanings of life through eyes that maybe will feel similar to them. Now they can search for them and find them, and that's what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's well and truly out there, which is fantastic.
But
good.
That's still to come later. I think
that is still to come later. We've got a bit sidetracked, but that's okay.
Shall we jump to some
Give us some
cosmic
news.
14-day sunshine? I think light or whatever it was. Beginning of life news for episode 36. Woohoo! Do-do-do-do-do.
So not a whole lot of news updates from me at the moment because I've had my head deep into some other bits and pieces, but I will just say there's a couple of things happening. Looking at the Australian Society of Authors news, there was a little bit of a disturbing thing that I had a bit of a look at, but I need to look further. And the ASA was dismayed to learn that the National Library of New Zealand donated over 400,000 books to Internet Archive, which has included a number of Australian books, many of which are still in copyright. Now, from what I understand, donating it to the Internet Archive means that they take a copy, PDF it, and it's free. So that's not a good thing for authors who still have their book in copyright, or even for authors that don't necessarily have them in copyright, but really are still trying to sell them. So the ASA, wrote to the National Library New Zealand to object, and a few other bits and pieces. So they said despite the criticisms, they're saying that the book creators have to opt out of the donation. So ASA is urging people to check the list of books that they're donating to the Internet Archive to see if your work's included, particularly titles that have been published pre-digitisation. So there's a list on the ASA website, and you can have a look there and see. And you've got till the 1st of December. So we better get this out before the 1st of December, Darren, so that people can make
it's
sure.
going to be out before the 1st of December. Definitely.
Excellent. That's good.
Goodbye,
So
sleep.
Yeah.
No, I'm only joking. But that's really interesting situation, because I wonder, any author would really like to get into libraries here in Australia as well, and obviously people who borrow books from libraries don't pay, but the libraries pay at some point for the copy. The copyrighted material that's been submitted, has that been purchased at any point prior?
No, this is the copyright is owned by the authors or the publishers. So these are not even, these are books by Helen Garner, Tom Keneally, Frank Morehouse, Sally Morgan, Colin Thiel, Mem Fox, Tim Winton. So they're not necessarily just the likes of, you or I, who might have some out there. These are some people who are full-time writers making a living from their works. Yeah, establishes
careers. Yeah.
So, yes, thank you. That's the word. Established careers. So that was an interesting piece of news. The other one that, which is, these are a little bit more technical, I know, but the ASA, Australian Society of Authors, we're very pleased that after, again, another campaign advocating for artists, that the Australian Publishers Association has amended its member code of conduct to include a provision which improves the recommended terms of publishing contracts for authors. So this recommends to the APA's publisher members that reversion clauses in publishing contracts are based on objective grounds. So this is a good thing, and you can find out why that's important to you, and why you would want to terminate your publishing agreement and revert your rights by having a look on the website. So there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes, which is important. And I know that the federal government at the moment is there's an inquiry into the creative and cultural industries, which was released by the House of Representatives, the Standing Committee of Communications and the Arts, and it's about sculpting a national cultural plan, igniting a post-COVID economy for the arts. So, stay tuned for more information on that. So I think that's about all. There are still competitions going on. There are literary awards all over the place. So if you are a writer, keep your eye on all those things. Now the other thing is that GenreCon 2022, the full program, has been announced. So we have spoken with the Queensland Writers' Centre. We had a fantastic chat with them, and GenreCon, which one of our authors, mental blank. What's his name? Gorgeous man who helped me do the interview.
You mean Kevin Clare?
Yes. So GenreCon has been lucky enough to have Kevin Clare, and he interviewed Queensland writers with us. So very excited to see their full program is announced. So make sure that you have a bit of a look at that and see if you can squeeze in a little holiday to Queensland and spread some of our economic love around the state of QLD.
And when is that in 2022?
Yes, so it's in 2022 from the 18th till the 20th of February.
Oh, okay.
And the theme for the conference is The Storyteller.
Interesting.
So there you go. And they've already got Claire G. Coleman, who I love. It's fantastic. I love her stuff. Solari Gentile and Karen Warren. They're hosting workshops. Amy Kaufman, yay! She and Jay Christoph's last in their Aurora Rising series is just released. I've just seen that. And Marianne De Peers, I've been to a workshop with her, and she is the great teacher of world building. So lots and lots of people. Good for writers and good for readers to go and hear their favourite authors speak and to hear all about Australian genre writers. There you go. That's my news.
Yeah, that sounds great. I definitely want to. Oh, it'd be so nice to be able to get away quickly back to the Queensland for a week or two in February. I know it's the wettest time of the year, but still, with a genre conference, that'd be amazing. Is that in Brisbane or the Gold Coast?
I think it might be in Brizzy because the Queensland Writers Centre is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look.
Oh, it's a beautiful city,
Wait,
Brisbane.
I'll just check the GenreCon website for you. And yeah, it looks like Brisbane.
Beautiful. Excellent. Yep. Well, I think that's something we've got to keep our eye on, and maybe we can start revealing a whole lot of the different programs and events that'll be part of that.
Yes.
Because what a way to kick off 2022.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And they've got a fabulous website, which is genrecon.com.au. So have a look on there for some more information and join their mailing list.
Okay, so I guess it's my time for some news, and I thought I might do something a little bit different because at the time of recording we are finally, I guess, midway, or maybe at least on the steamrolling track towards borders opening and trying to get things back to normal as far as just one Australia without the borders and the squabbles. So we love nothing more than to celebrate the fantastic authors that have been so gracious and so kind as to list their books on the Australian Book Lovers website. But with, artists all around Australia have been hit in all different ways, due to COVID and whatnot. So I just thought for this news segment, I might just celebrate Australian authors in general. And, with Amazon.com.au, they have a top 10, or top 100, but I'm going to go through the top 10 of top-selling Australian authors, which is pretty much updated hourly. So this is pretty much hot off the press. Not always necessarily the latest releases, but again, it's actually the best sellers as the time of recording. So I thought I'll just go through this top 10 list, and if there's something out there that people perk their interest, then definitely have a look. And I'm going to explore a couple of little books a little bit more in depth. So at the number 10, we have The Lost Man by Jane Harper. And at number 9, we have The Two Lost Mountains, a Jack West Jr. novel, number 6, and that is by Matthew Riley, who's a very fast-paced writer, very Indiana Jones, the one I've read, very much fun. Number 8, we have The Barefoot Investor, The Only Money, let's have a look, what's that title say? The Only Money Guide You'll Ever Need by Scott Pape. Now, I don't know if that's timely or not, how long that's going to last, but
we have just been whinging off air, you and I, well, not whinging, commenting about all the bills coming in this time of year.
Yes. So at least I don't have a sudden $1.3 million mortgage. Anyway. Now, at number 7, we have Sorrow and Bliss, the instant Sunday Times bestseller by Meg Mason. Number 6, and I think you've talked a little bit about this one, we have Boy Swallows Universe, and that's an international bestseller by author Trent Dalton.
Yeah.
Number 5, we have Jane Harper once again with The Survivors. Number 4, we have a book called The Kiss Quotient. Is it Quotient?
Quotient.
It is Quotient. Yeah. I always thought that. So we'll go The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and that's number 4. And number 3, one of our lucky numbers, we have The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. Number 2, we have a book called Challenge Accepted by Celeste Barber. And number 1, we have a book title called The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie Jacquot, which is a good title. I think that's going to get him a few purchases while everyone's trying to perk themselves up, because who doesn't want to be the happiest person on earth?
Is that by the elderly gentleman from Sydney?
Now, this is actually about, I'll open it up, and because it didn't tell me where exactly the author was from, I can find out. Let's have a look here. No, it's not going to tell us. But this it's a winner of the ARBIA Biography of the Year 2021. And life can be beautiful if you make it beautiful. It is up to you. Eddie Jacquot always considered himself a German first and a Jew second. He was proud of his country, but all of that changed in November 1938 when he was beaten, arrested, and taken to a concentration camp. Over the next 7 years, Eddie faced unimaginable horrors every day. First in Buchenwald, then in Auschwitz, then on a Nazi death march. He lost family, friends, his country. Because he survived, Eddie made the vow to smile every day. He pays tribute to those who are lost by telling his story, sharing his wisdom, and living his best possible life. He now believes he is the happiest man on earth. So published as Eddie turns 100, this is a powerful, heartbreaking, and ultimately hopeful memoir of how happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. Does that sound like the author you're thinking?
That is the one. I had read a review of it, yes, which is fantastic.
Oh, it does sound like a... Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of my my grandma, from the Russian side, who I think I mentioned a little in one of the interviews, had the food always, the table full of food at all times.
Yes,
and was always in a good mood because there was food. Why wouldn't she be? But there was just that brief moment in time when she told me about being in the concentration camp and the horrors, and kind of imprinted on me in that moment of where it wasn't that there was a happiness she had that could not be broken. I think, and that's something that shone through, and I don't know, hard to describe, but I can understand what he means, that at some point, I'm sure my grandma or my nana is aware that she'll meet all her friends again, and but just to be here and to carry on and to let people know what happened, I guess, maybe there's a reason to be happy. So it'd be interesting, a book to read. There you go. So, and for everyone out there, it's such a good inspiration to tell your tale, no matter what sort of challenge or pathway you've taken in life. I mean, there's always stories can inspire us all, and every kind of story can inspire us.
Yep, and there are so many fabulous books out there. There is a book for everybody. I absolutely believe that, whether you like fiction or whether you're doing business and looking for investing, it's all there.
That's right. And for example, so we just had a chat about a 100-year-old author and his tale from 1938, or the events that happened in 1938 that led to him being the happiest man in the world. And now we go to another Australian author, Celeste Barber, to a book called Challenge Accepted. Now, so funny woman, Instagram star, international comedy sensation, and now best-selling author, Celeste Barber's Challenge Accepted is a hilarious and outspoken guide to life, unwanted gas, and how to rock a sexy scar. It's real, like totally, really real. Actor, writer, and comedian Celeste Barber's one very funny woman, not to mention a global social media comedy phenomenon. Amassing over 3.8 million followers in 3 years with her hilarious hashtag Celeste Challenge Accepted pics, she has been dubbed Australian Comedy Queen by ABC Online, voted the funniest lady on Instagram, gone on sold-out comedy tours of the US, and won herself fans ranging from Tom Ford and Ruby Rose to Amy Schumer and Dawn French. Now, in the tradition of Tina Fey's Bossy Pants, Challenge Accepted is part memoir, part comedy routine, part advice manual. Calling out our ridiculous obsession with celebrity Instagram culture, Celeste reveals all, including her thoughts on keeping it real, the secrets to love, friendship, family and marriage, oh hey, hashtag hot husband, and how to deal with life's many challenges like motherhood and what to do when your local bottle shop owner can't remember your name. So that's look at the range we got with awesome, and these are all best-selling Australian books now by Australian authors, which is amazing. So already you can go from something a little bit philosophical and spiritually enhancing to something that is socially a good belly laugh, and maybe
light-hearted fiction,
a good excuse to laugh at ourselves. Yeah. Now we also have a couple more books to spotlight. I think be interested for some of our big book lovers out there. The Survivors by Jane Harper. So this is the compelling new novel from Jane Harper, who is of course a New York Times best-selling author of The Dry. Yes,
which I have watched with Eric Bana. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's great, really, isn't it? Yes.
I haven't read the book though. It's not real.
You can tell in the movie that it was definitely based on a book because they. It's not a book. It's not a movie review show, but I think they should have stuck really with one plot or the other. But you can see that they're trying to get the intricacies of the book in there. But Eric Bana's so good. But anyway,
it was so good, wasn't he?
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that, listeners, and you like a slow burning, simmering Aussie suspense, that's definitely one to get some popcorn on the table for.
Yeah, but, and we didn't guess till the end. We had it completely wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Ian and I are not very good at mysteries and the whodunits, even though my daughter loves Poirot and has watched them time and time again, and she loves Agatha Christie, all of those, and she can always tell you who did it. Yeah, no, I couldn't guess.
Yeah, I've got no comment, but because we don't want to give anything too much away. But Eric Bana's performance is just amazing, as it always is when it comes to drama, and of course he's a great comedian as well. But yeah, so this compelling new novel, obviously from Jane Harper, and it's Kieran Elliott's Life Changed Forever. on the day a reckless mistake led to devastating consequences. The guilt that still haunts him resurfaces during a visit with his young family to the small coastal community he once called home. Kieran's parents are struggling in a town where fortunes are forged by the sea. Between them all is his absent brother, Finn. When a body is discovered on the beach, long-held secrets threaten to emerge. A sunken wreck, a missing girl, and questions that have never washed away. And that is The Survivors by Jane Harper. So definitely you can get a sense of the dry's slow unravelling there as well, even just in that plot description.
Yeah.
Well, going from a slow unravelling to an author that I mentioned, I've only had a brief interlude with, should I say, read a little bit of one of his books, but Matthew Riley, who it's very action, and you want that trumpet sort of theme track in the theme song in the background. So The Two Lost Mountains, a Jack West Jr. novel, and it's number 6. So number 1 best-selling action author Matthew Riley continues his explosive Jack West series. An incredible victory, but at a terrible price. Against all the odds, Jack West Jr. found the 3 secret cities, but at a heartbreaking cost. His beloved daughter Lily, it appeared, was slaughtered by Sphinx in a cruel ancient ritual. To the mountains and the fall. With his rivals far ahead of him, Jack must now get to one of the 5 Iron Mountains, 2 of which have never been found, and perform a mysterious feat known only as the Fall. Although, what is the object on the moon that is connected to it? A new player arrives. Amid all this, Jack will discover that a new player has entered the race, a general so feared by the 4 legendary kingdoms they had him locked away in their deepest dungeon. Only now this general has escaped, and he has a horrifying plan of his own. And that is The Two Lost Mountains by Matthew Riley. And to finish up, a little bit of a spotlight on some of our best-selling Australian authors, as at the time of recording, which is almost mid-November 2021. A book I did mention that you'd mentioned before, and that is Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. So
It's been out for a while, so it's good that it's still
I think
up
it's
there.
gaining steam, yeah, definitely. So it opens with, the best Australian novel I've read in more than a decade, a quote from the Sydney Morning Herald. Astonishing, captivating, a wild, beautiful, heart-exploding ride by Elizabeth Gilbert. So the best-selling novel that has taken Australia and the world by storm, winner of the Book of the Year at the 2019 Indie Book Awards, winner of a record 4 Australian Book Industry Awards in 2019, including the prestigious Book of the Year Award, and winner of the 2019 UTS Glenda Adams Award for New Writing, New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards. Brisbane, 1985. A lost father, a mute brother, a junkie mum, a heroin dealer for a stepfather, and a notorious crim for a babysitter. It's not as if Eli Bell's life isn't complicated enough already. He's just trying to follow his heart and understand what it means to be a good man. But fate keeps throwing obstacles in his way, not the least of which is Titus Brose, legendary Brisbane drug dealer. But now Eli's life is going to get a whole lot more serious. He's about to meet the father he doesn't remember, break into Boggo Road Jail on Christmas Day to rescue his mum, come face to face with the criminals who tore his world apart, and fall in love with the girl of his dreams. A story of brotherhood, true love, and the most unlikely of friendships, Boy Swallows Universe will be the most heartbreaking, joyous, and exhilarating novel you'll read all year. So huge praise, very, very dynamic plot points there. How could you not want to read that book? That has to go under the Christmas trees all around Australia, or on the Kindle, for Christmas.
Yeah.
Be beamed through. Santa must have a little, what do they call it, sled that goes through the Wi-Fi and delivers little Kindle books to all our book lovers out there.
That's right.
Yes, so that was a bit of a spotlight on our current best-selling Australian authors, and what an amazing selection of titles. I think that's what really jumps out to me. It just shows you that the audience out there is ready for anything, isn't it?
Yes.
Because remember, these are the books that are just selling like hotcakes, which is fantastic for our Australian authors. And,
it is.
That top 10 list was just a whole range of genres, stories, concepts, and so
many
hopefully,
different bits.
Yeah,
but you did remind me, Darren, that when you spoke about electronic delivery, in that we had 5 winners for our giveaway of Chris Tim's audiobook, The Last Manor Apocalypse.
Yes, absolutely.
So all those people have safely got their downloads, and hopefully they have been enjoying that. And one lucky winner has won a book from us before, so she was very excited to get a second
Not
prize.
rigged,
So,
not rigged,
not rigged at all. No.
No, seriously. I don't know. Who was our lucky winner that got 2?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was Laura, but I don't quote me on that one.
Laura.
But yes,
If it is Laura.
which was fantastic. And we also had one of our new sign-ups. We saved one copy for people who signed up new in the couple of weeks that we were giving away the book. So that's very exciting. So thank you to author Chris Timms for giving us the 5 copies of his audiobook.
Yes,
The
thank you very
Aussie
much,
Man
Chris.
Apocalypse. A lit RPG novel. Again,
Yes.
something completely different.
Yes, but you should see the, I guess, when I was telling people that I know that are into those sorts of gaming arenas, when I had a chat and told them that I interviewed someone who did lit RPG game, the look in their eyes, what? Hey, what's so yes, the people out there that love it.
Yes,
just like my eyes light up when you tell me it's a horror story. Or dystopian. But speaking of prizes, look, I think that come the start of December we may have some great prizes. Very special prizes that unique prizes to Australian book lovers that will be coming out for a good little Christmas contest. So more on that in the next episode or 2. But this
so
is
don't forget
super
to
cool.
sign up if you're just listening to us. Don't forget to sign up to the occasional newsletter that I get myself organised. But it does mean that you are on the list for the competition. So
that's right. Yes.
Jump in.
And absolutely. So it will be for all subscribers, and there's going to be some great Chrissy Prezi prizes. And look, Veronica, at the moment we're a 2-person show, so it takes some things take a bit more time than we hope to, but
it does.
we're getting there.
Yes.
And look, at some point we're going to be a megalonomic, whatever the word is, corporation, and
maybe never. Maybe never.
dictating quick barks of demands from our helicopters as we're heading towards that island, because it was just the right time to get that lobster for lunch. And
I'm vegetarian, so let's just moving on from your megalomania dreams.
We'll work hard to continue to promote
We
Australian
will,
books
and yes,
and to bring books into the book lovers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we are doing just a little bit of a catch up with some of our interviews at the moment, but we are getting there very slowly but surely. And we've already got people booked for next year. So
we've got a big summer ahead. If
Big
only
summer
summer were to
ahead.
start, because every time the cold weather and the rain and the hail hits, it makes it easy to. Well, not easy, but it makes it harder to just keep up and sit up all night, which I'd love to do with a horror movie playing in the background and working away with the sweat going and the fan. But it just hasn't hit yet, and that's my golden time. And where is it?
there you go.
I'm worried about the windows getting smashed with winds and rain. It's like, what? So summer is coming, and so is a whole lot of new cool things with the Australian book lovers. Yes. So, but congratulations, you're right, to all of our winners, and to all of our listeners and subscribers to the website. There are some cool Christmas prezzies coming on the way.
Definitely.
So now that's the news for today. But do tell. So how much fun was it talking with Anna? Because I know that she has a sense of humour that I hear jumps straight out of the page.
Oh, absolutely. She is just hilarious. And I'm going to read a little bit about Anna from her website so that people get all of the information about it, because she's done so much. And as I said, there's a bit of a gap between when we spoke and now. And she just continues to do so much more. So her debut Own Voices novel, Peter Lyre's Rating Normal, was shortlisted for the CBCA, which is the Children's Book Council of Australia Book Awards. She's also got an essay titled Noisy Silence in Growing Up Disabled in Australia, which I've read, which was edited by Carly Findlay, that was out in February of this year. Again, really fantastic. And that is a great book for people to read. So many different voices to, just get a much better understanding of people who are living with a disability. So her next novel, called Tearing Myself Together, is going to be released in early 2022, again with Ellen and Unwin. Now, when coronavirus spread, Anna founded a chat show called OzChat, just to keep the community together. And the YouTube channel...
So cool.
Yeah, is now funded in part by the Australian Arts Council. So, she just gathers momentum and she gathers enthusiasm, and she's fantastic supporter on Twitter. So she uses her YouTube and Twitch presence, she's way ahead of me there, to collaborate and connect with the writing community and more broadly with composers and gamers. She's a really big gamer and interesting folk all around the world. So I'm going to tell you about Sonic Inc. in a minute. She's got a PhD in young adult fiction, literary criticism. She's taught sociology and YA and children's literature to pre-service teachers. She loves going to writers' events, and she'll tell us about in the interview. There's a really serendipitous meeting that she had. She likes conferences, Twitter storms, book launches, and she's a really strong advocate, as you can understand, for the neurodivergent community. So during her younger years, she travelled a lot. She's had more jobs than she can remember, including making pizzas, hotel cleaning, waitering, pharmacy assistant, data entry, publishing, advertising, payroll, and youth work. She's always busy with another hobby or project, from sewing to Lego. She's amazing at Lego. Or taking photos of mushrooms in a rainforest. She loves Minecraft and video editing and coming up with new ideas to make sure she never gets bored. So
sounds like Anna is a bit of a gypsy, just like myself, where a job is just a little temporary stop along the way in life.
Yeah, I mean, and if you say Anna Whateley, everybody goes, oh, yes, she's done this, or I know this about her, or whatever. One of the really interesting things also that she does is this thing called Sonic Inc. So it's on her website, and I've talked to you about this before, where she works with a guy called Max Stout, and she was playing League of Legends, and she met Max Stout, and the two of them put together the music and the writing. So speed writing and composition. So basically they have 2 hours to write and compose a piece to the theme given over Twitch by a viewer.
That's awesome.
Or one that she's got in a mystery list in case that is too hard. And a few tweaks later, just to make sure that it's slick, and then they put it up on YouTube, and that's it. So they have people watching them as they compose or write, and some of the stories that she tells when we're interviewing is really amazing. So, and some of those YouTubes are up on her website, and they're just brilliant. So yeah, just an amazing, creative, and absolutely generous and compassionate woman. She's just brilliant.
What an opportunity for such a fantastically fun interview.
Yeah.
Talk about having, pokers in a whole range of bonfires all across the planet.
That is it,
so to speak.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And what a cool idea, like speed writing and speed music writing,
and composition,
I guess, as well. Yeah, composition.
So,
that's super cool. Yeah,
it's
definitely something I want to check out. And so how many books has Anna written?
So she's got her debut novel, and she's got a story in Growing Up Disabled in Australia, and her second solo is about to come out early next year.
Fantastic.
So with all of that, you are armed and ready to listen to a fabulous chat with the delightful Anna Whateley.
I couldn't agree more. Let's go.
Hello, Anna Whateley. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
It is an absolute pleasure. I think I've been nagging you for a little while, and I'm very glad that you've been able to squeeze us in, because you've become quite famous since, I first met you on Twitter a while back.
I don't know what counts as famous or infamous.
Well, perhaps infamous is a better word, because when I was looking up all the things that you do to talk to you about today, not only do you have a fabulous book in Peter Lyre's Rating Normal, you've got another one on the go, which is tearing myself together. Thank you. You've got a short story in Growing Up Disabled in Australia. You run AusChat, which has now got funding from the Arts Council. You've got a YouTube channel. You've got Twitch. You've just started Sonic Inc.
Oh, yes.
Which is
just... You can't have too many projects.
You can't. But I love someone who has as many shiny syndrome things as me. So it's fantastic to talk to someone who is not going to say to me, and what else are you doing? With this kind of bemused, oh my God, how can she do that?
No, love multiple projects, I think. Keeps the energy going.
Yes, definitely. So let's start with Peter Lyre, if we could, because this is Australian Book Lovers, and Peter Lyre is on the web pages at ABL. A little bit about Peter, if you would. Give us a little bit of just the kernels of what the story's about.
how long since I pitched Peter Lyre? Here we go. Peter Lyre is a neurodivergent 16-year-old who gets everything right. She follows all the rules, and then until she falls in love with a new girl and goes on the school ski trip, and everything starts to unravel because the rules don't make sense, and she ends up having to choose which ones to follow and which ones to break.
It's a pretty amazing story. Yeah,
it's hard to sum up. Like, it's kind of like you can give a pitch of like they go on a ski trip and come home, and it doesn't really encompass like the drama.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
you can describe it as a romance. You can describe it as a known voices. You can describe it as a coming of age. You can, so many.
And
things.
she really is that. I like that she's kind of a little harder to classify, even though it's very much contemporary young adult fiction. But so because she's autistic and has ADHD and sensory processing disorder, like myself. And so it's just that process of hearing all the rules in her head as she's going about her daily life. And that's what I put the reader through. I kind of feel like I should apologize, but I didn't know everyone didn't do that. And I also didn't know that I wasn't the only one. So that's a little bit of holding a bit of a contradiction in my head at the same time. But I've realized sometimes I'm a bit like, how can you not think like this? And then other times I'm thinking, I really thought I was all alone, and all these people are saying that they understand. So, yeah.
Tell me more about people recognizing themselves in your story.
Unbelievable. It's been amazing. I get such lovely little messages from anyone from like 12 years old all the way up to, there was I think it was a woman in her 80s went into the bookstore in Melbourne and said, I saw this thing on the news and I need this book because I think that's me. Oh. And I thought, oh my goodness.
Isn't that just fantastic?
And my own grandma, she's in her 90s. And she wouldn't admit if she saw herself in it, but she said that she definitely saw grandpa in there. And I wish I'd had this one when I was parenting teenagers.
Yes.
So, having that broad range of people recognizing either some element of their own, maybe if they're an anxious person, they're not neurodivergent themselves, but they can recognize some aspects that hit home a little bit for them. But mostly, I mean, I might be up to 6 or is it 7 formal diagnoses of people who've read the book and then gone and seen, sought their own diagnosis. And I think that's great because it means they now know there's community waiting for them, because I think the people that rally around mine and like Kay Kerr's book and things, it's like shown that there are people there to catch you. You know, you're not falling alone. Like when we were diagnosed and we didn't know anyone else like us. There's now that safety net there.
That's fantastic. So I guess we should say anybody who is seeking a diagnosis, what's the best first step for them?
You should probably see your GP first to try and get funding for anything you can to get a referral onto, for 6 psychology sessions or something like that. You can get, that's like the cheapest way to be looking for it. Or you can, obviously if you have a psychiatrist, they're capable of doing that. But I actually sought out my own psychologist who specialized in women, autistic women, and there was no funding for that. And so it tends to cost about $1,000 to go in and have all the testing done. And it's a long process in that it's hours of testing and everything. And then you get reports and then you choose what to do with them. There's no pressure to disclose. So if you are diagnosed, it doesn't mean everyone will then know, or your workplace or anything. You can kind of just have that for yourself, and then you can continue to see them if you'd like, or someone else for what to do with what comes out of it, and they can often put in sort of autism and ADHD and the giftedness. It all kind of comes under the same assessments, so you can have the whole sort of thing done at once if that's easier as well. Anything requiring medication, like for ADHD, that's a psychiatrist you need. A psychologist can't prescribe. So that's the process in Australia anyway, which is expensive.
But at least it is there. That's, as you
it
say,
is there.
There may be better all the time.
There would be a public system, but it would just be a long wait.
Yeah. And the consistency, I think the public systems sometimes struggle because the doctors turn over so quickly and rotate through, various things. Yeah. What was the inspiration to write Peter Lyre?
I needed a book. Like I'd written a middle grade fantasy, and that was my first real book, like a whole 50,000 words, you know. Woo! Yeah, I know, it was amazing. And I wanted to see what would happen with that, and a chapter book as well, but that was much smaller. And so I booked in for a conference at the CYA conference in Brisbane. And then before that, I thought, I need to know what it's like to go to an event as a book person, because I'd always been an academic.
Yes.
So I booked in for the Love YA Day in Brisbane. And I'd always sworn I'd never write young adult fiction because I'd studied it so much. I thought it would be a terrible idea, and I have nothing to write like that. Never.
You've got a PhD in young adult fiction.
I know. How tragic is that? And then there's me. That's exactly why I thought, no, I could never do this.
Did the academics ruin your enjoyment of it, do you think?
No,
or were you just over it for a while? Or
no, just love it.
I
would, yeah. And the PhD is in studying it as a cultural product. Like it's like a theoretical sort of analysis, literary analysis. Okay. But anyway, I never found that ruined. Oh, no, I talk about that forever. I find that always made everything better. I was never one to think that pulling it apart ruined things. It's not really my jam. So.
Gave you a deeper insight.
Yeah, and you get to like kind of revel in it. It's a bit like people who want to dive in and swim in money or something. And it's that feeling of just being completely surrounded by the thing you love more than anything. And so for me, studying those words and having an excuse to look at them endlessly, which is obviously a passion of mine, or special interest, or however we want to call it. So it was like that. I get to dive in and just focus on those words that I really loved. Oh, the theory gave me a real buzz. And so I would do that and had a good excuse to do it. Yeah. I've run out of excuses though.
Oh, damn. You can't do a double doctorate or something?
Well, no, it's a pretty hard industry. I don't know if I want to work in the academic world anymore. Yeah. So, but I went to the Love YA Day.
Yes.
And sat next to some lovely people who were really lovely, and we were talking away. And then on stage comes, Ellie Marnie and all these amazing people talking, and some editors. So like Christina Schultz was there, and Alex Adset, and they were all saying, we want own voices novels. That's what we really need. And I just thought, I'd never heard the term because I had been a bit out of the loop having a baby and doing that. And it had kind of come about after my PhD. The hashtag had all started after I'd finished. So there was like a 10-year gap there. And I thought, what's own voices? Like what? And I kind of picked it up pretty quickly. I was like, oh, great. Well, I've got nothing. I'm like white. I live quite a middle class life now and all that. And then I was sitting there and it dawned on me. I thought, I don't know many ADHD characters who are like, apart from Percy Jackson, where are the girls? And then I thought, maybe I should do that. And then I was talking to the people next to me who turns out organised the CYA conference. It was Tina and Sam.
Serendipity.
And they're like, you should book more than one thing. Why'd you book like one session with an editor? You need to book like, go get in there, pitch to some agents. I'll introduce you. I thought, okay. So I went home and booked all these editor sessions and agent pitching sessions. And I looked at what they wanted, and then I looked at what I'd written, and I'm like, oh no, that's just crap. I can't pitch that. I should probably write the Own Voices YA novel. So within about 2 or 3 weeks, I wrote Peter Lyre. So that's like the book side of what I did.
Yeah.
And then, but emotionally, that just opened a huge floodgate, and it all just poured out. And so it really came out from nowhere. And then I saw the difference in that writing to the writing I'd done in the fantasy novel. And I could then think, okay, pitching this is easy because I can see why that's different, or has something in it, like looking from the outside in. So I get stuck now writing ostensibly slightly miserable things rather than my dragons and my lovely fantasy worlds.
Well, being a dragon and fantasy person, please go back and write a few eventually.
I know. Well, I'd like to go back and try and fix them, but then I know that would distract me from the writing I'm doing now, which is better, and it is painful and it hurts, and that's why it's good. I know. I have to add the passion in and the fun in, because otherwise it is miserable. So
very much so. Yeah, got to find, fill up all the buckets at once. Yeah, don't have one just empty. Yeah. It was the same for me. I wanted to write the fantasy. It had just been burning in my brain forever, but I had to go back and write the memoir because I was sort of transcribing, notes to my daughter, and I had to get that out. But once that was out, then it was easier to go back.
You do
to do the other. Yeah.
And I had to get the fantasy one out.
Yes.
Because I loved Anne McCaffrey and Catherine Kerr so much, and my kids wanted dragon stories at their level without disturbing content.
Yes.
Because they're a bit scared. Like they don't want, like Anne McCaffrey and that. Like there are scenes in that you're not giving to your 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But she wants the other stuff, you know. And we'd found a few, but they go through them so fast.
Yeah.
And so I needed to get that out of my system to just write, and it was great fun. It was really good. I really wasn't very good at it though. So I need to, because I'd written in third person and past tense, which I've now learnt is not good for me. I end up tripping up over my words all the time. It's not natural. So first person present tense just came out.
Just works. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot better. Yeah.
Which is good. Okay, so you've got Peter Lyre. That's with Alan and Unwin.
Mm-hmm.
Is your second book also with them?
Yep. Same editors and everything. I've got my team, Jodie and Kate, who are phenomenal editors and support people and friends of mine now. And I'm just, there wasn't really a choice. It was just like, I wrote a book, take my book, please. Yes, okay, great, thanks. I didn't really want to even ask anyone else.
So did you just pitch to Alan and Unwin?
Yeah, I just said
they were the ones you
wanted. If they'll take me, I'll stay.
You're right.
And especially given that it's set in the same world as Peter Lyre, and with different students, and it's a year later, and it's a different sort of focus in it. I think having that consistency in my editing team and having for me that sense of trust, because this second book was so much harder to write, hugely difficult emotionally, and I needed to know, I guess, that I had some people I could fall back on. And they've already, really helped me through that. So,
because I know you can do the work, and they know you, and
I think they've got faith that it will end up okay. I mean, Peter Lyre arrived in an extremely polished state, like it was very tightly completed. Unlike Tearing Myself Together, which has been a little bit more messy. I'm gesturing with my hands, which is not
gesturing,
helpful.
I can see it.
I'll gesture loudly. No, it's been a very different writing experience. So it's 2 years at least in the go, and it's still not at the stage where I would say that's a complete package. But it's with them now. They'll fix.
That's a good thing. Now. Why do you think this was so difficult, given that it's a sequel but not quite a sequel?
Yeah. So Blair and Hilsey, the two characters who I focused through for this one. So there's two for one thing, because I've not done that before. Like have two focal people, and because I write so heavily in voice, I've then got two whole voices that I'm juggling. So I have to write them very separately so that they sound consistent for who they are. And I did write them one by one. I wrote one story and wrote the other, and then I realized one was so dark and the other was so light, they didn't stand up on their own. Putting them together worked, and they were all set in the same place, and it really did match. I just didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was in a bit of a panic that if I didn't have my second book written before Peter Lyre came out, that I would end up stuck with the second book syndrome that everyone talks about, that it's really hard. So I was like, no, I must not have that. I have to be prepared, and I have to write something. So I kind of pushed these out, and then I realized after writing particularly Blair's story, because she has an operation on her lip that leaves her quite disfigured and in a lot of pain, and the operation itself is quite traumatic, which is the one I had on my lip, although she has a melanoma, not a BCC, just because of her age. And checked with my dermatologist, and we had a discussion about what was likely.
Good research.
He loves it. He thinks this is great. And then writing it, and it was a really traumatic experience. The operation was huge. So there was, and I can't give away like secrets, can I?
No. Well, not unless you want to. No spoilers.
I've mentioned it before on Twitter.
Okay.
Anyway, and for the people who listen to your podcast, they get an extra treat.
Excellent.
So there was no general anaesthetic available. So it's 40 stitches I've had in my lip, where they basically cut your whole face open, chop it out and stick it all back together again. But I was awake for it, and I could smell it and hear it. And the sensory, I've never been so terrified in my whole life. And I've done a lot of things that are terrifying. So it was looking back through that, and then to get the timing right for healing. So in your narrative, you know, plot wise, I had to look at what point could I speak again? At what point could I use, I had to use a straw for about a year to drink, because I can't feel the edge of the cup or the mug on my lip. It's still numb. And so I would just be spilling things and stuff. And so I had to look back on the photographs, and I had to look back on my emails, and I had to, you know, and there are things I can't put in the book because they don't make sense. But the day that my son came out, he was like 4 or 5, 3 or 4 or something. I can't remember now. No, it would have been about 2. It was about 2.5. So he toddles out of the bathroom and sort of, no, maybe he was 3. Sorry, I'm having a moment there. I can't remember. But he could talk because he goes, now I look like mummy. And he'd cut himself with a razor on his lip.
Oh,
and he was bleeding.
Oh.
And it was just like the most horrible thing. And I couldn't smile at them. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't smile at my children for such a long time. And I'd just gotten divorced like a year before. So it was just me. And I was there with like trying to hold up smiley faces to tell them I was happy and things like that. But at the end of the day, I couldn't feel things. So you can't feel happy because you accidentally smile. And I remember watching something hilarious on television and running out of the room, holding my face together because it split a stitch, like it made it start to bleed, and thinking, I'm just not even allowed to feel joy right now. And then you can't cry either because that will make it
it's
tense.
Still screw your face up.
So you still can't even cry either. So I spent a lot of time disassociating and disembodying myself and trying not to feel. And that was months, and it was a horrific experience. And I had to look back on that in detail. And then I went to the conference in Melbourne talking about trauma writing, and I had a complete meltdown in Melbourne because obviously it was just not a good idea. And that's when I put it all away and said, no, I can't do that anymore. And then I wrote Hilsy's story, and she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but she's super bubbly and fun and light, and she's just like the best, like most light person to sort of be in her head is great because like everything's shit and she's just still going and making the most of it. She's a bit like that other side of me. She has the knee operation my daughter had where her knee died basically and had to be drilled to come back to life. Zombie knee, here we go. So I asked my daughter and she let me use her medical experience there, and of course they have ADHD and there's all that's in there, and there's the queer and all those things are all still thrown in as usual for me. So I wrote that side, that other narrative that really helped. And then so over the 2 years I then put them back together again. But having to edit that alone, I've spent a few months this year I just disappeared. You know, I disappeared from Twitter, I disappeared from my family. I started gaming completely obsessively. I'm really good at League of Legends. Bronze 2. I'm like in an elite esports team. Like I'm going full, you know, because I couldn't cope with the book. And it was this one way I could escape from it. So now it's off for structural edit. So I won't have to see it for a while. And I'm looking forward to having it come back as something I can love and nurture and know will be okay, because I know that's what Kate will do and Jodie will do for me, rather than just feel like I'm, you know, I need to know there's enough light in there to balance things. I can't make my readers go through too much.
Yes and no. Yes and no. But
gotta have a balance.
Yeah. And given that you have brought so much of your own experience into your work, what are your thoughts about people who are not neurodivergent or who are less neurodivergent, putting a neurodivergent character in their story?
Go for it.
There's
just not enough for even a bad representation is something, to be honest.
Yep.
And I know that's not probably like the way we're supposed to say it, but it's a little bit, it's like you have to come into hiding. You have to become something that even people know is there before they can fix that representation. And we're at that point almost, like with television and things where we've got a load of kind of dodgy characters, or we've realized that it's been used in the past more, and we're making it more of an overt process of saying, oh yeah, you know, like Sherlock Holmes or whoever it might be. But if for the conscientious writer, I guess there's always the process of having a sensitivity reader or an authenticity reader is really helpful. Writing in first person, though, I think that could be really dangerous. Like I don't write as a person of color. I don't write in voices that I feel like I had no idea if that would be authentic, and the risk of just doing huge amounts of damage to me and them is huge. So while I do my best to make sure I'm showing an accurate representation of the diversity in our community, and I lean on people, like I've had, my beautiful Persian Sam, who I then went and met with a cultural advisor to make sure that I was representing her family and her well, and everything. I think that's a really valuable process for a writer, if you can afford it. And if you can't afford it, see what you can do to sort of just do your best around that, or who that can help. Just so that we, if possible, can get accurate representations, and they'll all be different, which is brilliant. That's what we need.
Closer and closer every day. Thank you. Next book is your story in Growing Up Disabled in Australia.
Oh, yeah. My essay in their noisy silence.
Yes. Tell us about that. When in the, I guess, the time frame of that, when did that come out?
That would have been, I think I wrote that like early last year or something, maybe. I can't remember now.
Okay.
I wrote it quite quickly because I write everything quite quickly because otherwise I can't get a good flow in it. But then I went back and I put in, excerpts from my my diaries and because I'd used them to write it. I was like, what was it like for me? Why don't I, instead of using my dodgy memory, what if I go and look in my diaries? I obsessively wrote diaries when I was when I was 10 until 23 or something like that. I have just all this stuff, and some of it's just so hilariously boring and mundane, like endless who's going out with who when I was like 11 or something.
Growing Up Disabled was an amazing anthology. Which was so illuminating, in the same way that when I read Peter Lyre, I had such a much better understanding of my little grandnephew who has sensory disorder, and just to be able to think, this is the way I can see, this is the way his brain will work. And then with Growing Up Disabled in Australia, to talk about the social model of disability, which 30 years ago, when my daughter was born with a severe disability, there was nothing. And we had to advocate, argue, fight every step of the way with the health system, despite me being an insider in the health system. That is incredibly difficult. So that collection of stories was amazing.
I think Carly's done a great job. I was so surprised to be included in it because it's not my forte, writing nonfiction things. They just tend to come out, for me, they just are a bit esoteric sort of sounding, like a little bit weird, but I think I found a way to make it kind of a narrative. It works really well. I had to kind of try and get back to my genre, which was like, this is a story as well, like even and to not upset anyone, because of the partner has a lot I couldn't put in because of people who are alive and well, and my family don't even know I've done it. Actually, I have not actually told anyone in my family that I was published in it, which is just an omission on my part because they don't pay much attention to my writing anyway, and it wouldn't have been hard for them to not notice, to be honest. And it was easier than having them read it and then, like, particularly my mum, who's always been wonderful. She's like my total hero. I don't want her to read it and think, because she gets very upset that she didn't do more or couldn't have helped more. But as you say, that it just was a really different world. 30, 40 years ago, you didn't look at your kids and think, well, maybe we should find some adjustments for them at school for what looks like an endless tummy ache, like the amount of days I had off school with a tummy ache.
Growing
pains.
What
was that, it was all just worry, it was just a worry pot, or because I had no friends, I didn't want to go to school, and it must have been so hard for her, and I don't want her to blame herself, so to protect her from that as much as I can. Sorry, Mum.
If she's listening, don't tell her.
Exactly. Sorry, Mum. So
I think mothers are pretty forgiving. They understand. I wanted to forgive herself, though. I know she kind of That takes a bit longer. I'll just say that it takes a bit longer, but this is
and as a mum, I'm like,
yes.
it's been the process of me getting my own kids diagnosed and things. You'd think I'd know better. Like when they come up with a new diagnosis, one of them, and I'll be like, how did I not know that? Like this is my whole life is spent knowing about all the ways you can, be neurodivergent. And yet I've missed my own children in some respects, so one who is autistic, I didn't pick up on the OCD or the ADHD because it's so overlapping and interconnected. And until you can pull them apart or they can communicate a bit more as they get older, like become more verbal or whatever it is, or worse, become worse in some ways, until you can you realize that needs help. And you think, oh, why didn't I just jump in a bit quicker? So as a mum, I'm on the same. I read things and think, oh, is that what it's like for another neurodivergent person or whatever? Yeah. So I'm still in that learning process as well. I don't know if I've answered a question.
I think we got there. No, I think we got there because we were talking about growing up disabled in Australia.
And it's how things have changed. They really
so much.
Yeah. And yet in some ways not. Like my psychiatrist was clearly, and I've had a few, because you've got to find one who actually believes ADHD is a thing. And even autism, they're very reluctant to go there over trauma. All they want is to see trauma and that we need to fix PTSD and we need to fix this and this and this.
It's so hard for the medical profession. They so want to fix stuff.
Yeah.
Which bless their hearts, that's great, but that's not always the way
Instead
it works.
of accepting this is the way this is, maybe change the world you're in a little bit. You know, it's always down to you. It's always down to what can you fix to put up with everything, instead of saying, this might be a way to communicate with others about what you need. That's rarely been my experience. I've only had one person who said to me, one psychologist who was a bit like, well, but why do you be around them then? Why don't you just choose not to do that? Because they're hurtful and they don't understand or whatever. And I thought, I never knew I had the power to do that, and then I've found taking a little bit more control over who I associate with is really helpful. So there's not a lot of empowerment in that way. Although I don't like the word empowerment, because it's not like power is given as a gift and bestowed upon you by someone who owned it. It's more like recognizing that you get to play that game too. That power game, you get to have a go.
Tell me, how does your alphabet of diagnoses work with your writing process? What helps you get that flow? Because you've said when you write, you just got to get in there. And let's leave the League of Legends for a minute, but tell me about
the procrastinating.
Yeah. I procrastinate, so
wish I did that. Or wish you lived next door and did that, so I can be getting them.
More muffins.
Post them up here, baby.
So tell me about when you're in the flow.
Well, this will help frame it, because I have a really good one, because I've been doing this Sonic Ink with Maxed Out.
Yes.
Where we do spend 2 hours writing. I write and he composes music.
Yep.
And to do that, like particularly this week, I had to get in the zone really quickly, and I had to feel something quick enough to then write this authentic representation of something in 2 hours. Like, it was hilarious. And I'm live streaming this all to Twitch, right? And so I was like saying, Elizabeth was there with me. I can hear Max composing, and we decided on the theme, and it was going to be this market bazaar and a fortune telling was this idea. And he's got the drums and chimes and things like that going on. And I was just not finding the story properly, like not in a way that I felt like it would have any meaning. It's only 500 words. So I was like, right, that's it. I went and I lit my incense that I often put, my nag champa that I often burn when I'm writing. I've got all my lights around me. I love lights, and that's my sensory thing.
Yes, I'm going to put light here. I blew my candle out just in case it was distracting. But
well, I love a dark room with all the lights all around. And then I went and got my belly dancing gear out.
Beautiful.
And so I got I don't know if you can hear the jingle. There's don't worry. There's all belly dancing gear behind me and drums and my coin belt. And I don't laugh. So I put on all my old belly dancing gear that I used to wear.
Beautiful.
And I'm shimmying around, and I'm like, right, I've got the music going, and I had everything, all my senses So, you know, my sight, everything was kind of catered for. And then I had to stop and just sit down and just wait. And I just sit there with the program open, and I can still hear Max making it. So he knows he's got to keep a track kind of playing the whole time, the backing, whatever he's doing while he's composing. And I just had to then just sit and wait and be okay with the fact that it's not instant. I don't actually tend to write words that I'll delete later. I just kind of wait for them to then be the right words. I don't know if that makes sense. And then focus a little bit and just actually write a story, and then I will read it back quite a lot and move things around and make sense, make sure it makes sense. I have to make sure it's got a really nice and interesting ending for 500 words, and then just keep polishing that. And, you know, the week before, I actually wrote 3 in the time it took him to do the music, because I was writing the wrong thing. I was reading it going, nah, this is right. They wanted a battle scene, and I'm not like a battle scene. And he just bought these choir sounds, because he composes on the computer, where he's got like virtual instruments, you know, huge gear, like really expensive, like film score stuff. So he's bought all these choral singers, and he's like, it's going to have the music, like, you know, where it's like, where it plays, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's really fun. It's up there, the Sonic on the YouTube channel. And I needed this epic angels versus demons battle. And I'm like, in 500 words, I don't even write battles. But in the end, I was like, okay, what's that moment where one that I wrote, you know, imagine if you wake up and you're in, and an angel's like holding you, and you undo like the feathers. And then I had like heat. The angel had kind of grabbed her from the cathedral because she'd stolen something, and they had this kind of weird relationship. And she's like, oh, what'd you do that for? And he's like, what do you mean? You know, and he's this clueless angel, and she's trying to save him from being captured. I loved that one, but it wasn't right. It wasn't a battle. So in the end, I had to do this battle where then I had like holding the dying angel, and they were in love, and they're fallen angels, and they're battling demons. Anyway, it all worked. We really liked that. And Max read it out, so in his like Hawaiian accent, and he like is a professional. So he's like, leave her here or she will die. It was all like pro, and I'm like going, uh-oh. When I read them out, I'm just here with the mic going, yeah, so she went down to the, no, it's not like that. I do a bit better of a job. But from now on, I think we're going to be using voiceover artists.
Okay. So that's growing. So tell me about Twitch. No. It's
I know to
write, have an empire. You'll have
read out
so many empires
in 2 hours. They'll read an error and be like, oh, that's not very good. I'm like, 2 hours, guys, 2 hours.
But anyway, thinking about voiceover, I was listening to the ABC radio heading up to a book launch last night up in Woodend. First one for so long, was fantastic in real life.
Book launch. How amazing.
It was really good. So this was Erina Redden, the Serpent Skin. Fantastic. But anyway, listening to the ABC, and there apparently, and I'm going to look this up, there's a podcast about the animated show Bluey. And the writers and animators of Bluey have asked the 2 women from the podcast to do a voiceover part in one of their next shows. So they are so excited. So that's what I want to say to you. Your voiceover artists must be so excited to be there.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, they're really stuck in like the COVID world still over there.
Yeah.
So being able to do things from the island, you know, and from home
is really good. Yeah.
I think they're happy about that. But I've got to kind of imagine my stories being spoken in accents that aren't mine.
Yeah.
Because I write quite an Australian dialect.
Yes. Yeah.
And is that good for me to branch out, or should I be sticking to my thing? Or I don't know what I'm going to do. What if I wrote a script for 2 people? I don't know if I can do that. But it's a chance to do it. And, you know, if I stuff it up, oh, well, what have you got? You can't kind of be too afraid to try.
No, absolutely not. No, give it a shot. And yet, let's see a screenplay next, Anna.
Screenplay. That'd be a bit of a cracker, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, next week I've got to do something that uses brass instruments and a kind of war theme, because he's doing the film score for a little war, sort of a junior war film.
Yep.
And I was like, to save time, because he's got to be doing that, why don't you compose one of those and I'll write something. Me? I don't know. I'm like,
you just said no battle scenes, and now you're doing.
I know. No. So I'm thinking it's got to be something like letters, maybe. Yeah. You know, like between people, like who's at home. You know, something like that I know more about, like from my grandma's sort of side of thing, or who's left behind, or maybe like
Yeah.
try not to overthink it, because then it wouldn't be spontaneous. But the other
No.
side of me just desperately wants to be prepared. So anyway, this is what I'm doing, and I hope. And then I put visuals to it, like edit in some visuals to make it something that's worth watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's just a little side thing that keeps me going every week, where I actually have to push my writing a little bit, which I haven't done for a long time, because I don't enter in competitions at the moment, and I don't do flash writing as much as I used to, but I used to really like it. I'm not great at it. Like some people are amazing at it, but we can't all be perfect. That's part of the whole point of doing what we're doing is, and Twitch, because it's live.
Yes.
You're accountable. People are watching the whole process. Like you can see Max, stuff up some of his playing, or you can hear how he fixes things, or from the music. So composing and music, people are watching him with that, and people from our gaming community, hilariously, because that's how we met.
Yeah.
So they're watching him do that, and I'm with the writing side on Twitch, and so we have 2 channels going at the same time, and I do my sort of writing thing over on mine, which sounds more boring, but then you go and get your belly dancing stuff out, and it's not.
It's not so boring. I was just going to say, I'm thinking coins and belly dancing.
What am I going to do next week?
Well,
nothing.
Warhammer, pretend to be brass.
I can put on my band uniform. No, I have no idea. I'll think of some way to make it all work. But it is fun, and it's quite lively, and Bram's Presser. So I've been editing.
Yes.
He did. Yeah. Max did the music for Bram's Presser as well. So I've got another one of those to edit.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
That's just where I rang up Bram and said, hey, you know loads about books. Do you want to talk about it? And I'll record it. And he said, okay. And so they're 10 minutes each, but they're kind of fun and punchy, and he's hilarious. I don't know if he realizes how funny he is. And so I love editing him, and he's such a punk. And so I'm like, make it as hard as I can, like kind of keep it grungy and stuff. But he reads so much. He reads like the amount that he can get through is huge. So basically it's sort of whatever he's got going at the time to keep people up to date, because he writes a blog, but he wanted something more interactive, I think more visual. So we do that as much as we can. We had a bit of a break after Christmas because I disappeared into my book and couldn't get out. But now I'm emerging.
You're emerging, which is good. I'm happy to be part of the emerging.
You are part of the emerging. Thank you.
That's good. All right. Twitch, OzChat. We haven't covered. Tell us about OzChat.
OzChat again. I just rang people up and said hi at the beginning of COVID because we were all alone and didn't know what we were doing. And I already knew Zoom before like anyone knew Zoom. And I was like, hey, I'll record this chat.
Yes.
On my little laptop. I did this all on my tiny little laptop and somehow managed to record them, edit them, and put them up on Twitter like within the day. Like that, I can't.
That is
looking
amazing.
Back, like, what was I doing? Now it takes me weeks. Like, but they're much longer now. Everyone wants to talk for a really long time. It used to be like 10 or 15 minutes, and now I can't get people off. They're all out. But now I'm a bit more and actually know people more, and there's just more to say. And I don't want to cut someone off, so it's a bit longer. And I'm recording one tomorrow actually with the author Gary Lombard.
He is great.
The boy from the Mish.
Boy from the Mish. He was our first podcast guest.
Yes, and I'm
You've got Yvette she's your publicist. Yes, yeah, she's lovely,
and she's new for me. Last year we had Tina, so but it'd be great to have Gary on, and then I feel like that's part of my emerging is to get back into the Oz chats because I've been a bit, and I want to support people with books coming out this year. It wasn't an idea that I would only do it when I had a book. Like I never thought that. I just couldn't do the bit where I spoke to people for a while. So, but I'm going to get back into that. And then on Friday night, I'll be going to see Tabitha Bird's book launch for the Emporium of Imagination, which I read a draft for very early first chapter for.
Yes.
For my reading group, as Tabitha's in my reading group. So I'm really excited to go and actually, that's an in-person live thing. So I've got to get back into because I've got events this year and I need to remember what it means to get dressed.
Yes, I've still got my slippers on, but yes,
Yeah, I mean, you don't even want to know. There's leggings and socks, and one sock on, one sock off, and
no, I wore a big coat last night. It was easy. I'll admit I took off my tracky pants and wore jeans, but that was first time.
Oh, well, that's a bit posh.
That's a bit posh. Yeah. Well, they were giving out wine. It was at Holgate's Brewery, so I was fantastic.
See, I can't decide whether to drive or not because I don't know if it's a good idea if I get myself a bit lagered up at an event because I might not leave.
Well, if you're
like, I'm just going to sleep in the stacks.
I would have had to sleep around the vats and they were still brewing, so that would have been very noisy. Yeah, it was a great place. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be at Avid, which is just your regular bookstore.
Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? I've been to launches at readings in the city. I ended up having a launch at a little pub that I used for some of my other fundraising stuff for women who care. And they were fantastic. And that was just wonderful. I had a dragon cake just to make you jealous because I know you like dragons. And then I've been to some in halls and schools and things with local people. And it's just, I love seeing the look on the author's face when they tell people about their story. It is just amazing.
Yeah. I always have a pause because I think to myself, how much do you want to know? Because I could go on for, well, as you know, today, I'm sorry, I could go on forever.
Yes.
And in any tangent, like there's like a million stories in every direction.
Yes.
So I always pause and think to myself, careful, Anna, what is it they really want right now? Don't launch off. And so I think I'm nailing a little bit better now, like what people are after, but probably not.
It works for me. It works for me. I'm happy just having a chat. Our interviews are always very, very casual. In fact, I also recorded a chat with Tabitha, and it was on those really stormy days, and I think they were having a bit of weather problems up there, so we tried to keep it a bit short. But that book, beautiful. Her writing is luminous. It's just lovely.
Well, after reading, and I don't have my copy yet because I want to get it there and get it signed. I've waited.
I've got mine. I have to get out of the library.
So I've got to get it. I'm going to get it on the day, and I'm going to love reading it thinking I had a hand, not a very big hand, but I had a hand, and that she doesn't really need much help. And my reading's way behind as well, so I've got to catch up on, because when I'm writing I can't read, so I've got like a few months of things to catch up on.
What do you read? What are your favorites?
Well, at the moment I read very much in my own genre, so I tend to choose so like Gary's book or anything, obviously that Kay Kerr's written, and I really love but I like anything by Bren McDibble, or Kelly Black. My normal go-to for in life would have been my fantasy series, long fantasy series, but I haven't actually done that for a really long time. Other than that, though, I really like kind of postmodern fiction or poetry. I read a lot of poetry and short novella work at the moment, but that's to do with my attention span being terrible and some neurological issues that are making it really difficult in a sort of dyslexic way for me to read. So issues I've always had like that, which ADHD and dyslexia are about a 50% overlap, but we never were diagnosed as, I think it's like what they call disco dyslexia, where everything dances a lot on the page. And so I find it the first bit of reading really difficult. I'm a really reluctant reader, but that's also because I read really deeply and I get really deeply affected by it. And so I have to put a lot of books down if I know that it will trigger a trauma response or whatever. But I'm pretty cluey at figuring out which ones are going to do that now. But so I really love magical realist writing, like really like old fashioned, like Kafka and Peter Carey sort of style, or Moonlight on the Avenue of Faith. And I like Asphyxia's one. I really liked the graphic novella. I've not really read many, but her Future Girl, she's deaf and she writes a deaf own voices diary entry style book, but every page is illustrated, like beautifully illustrated, and that's an amazing. I actually haven't quite finished it, but I love it. Like physically, it's got this really tactile. The actual book has like a canvas feel on the outside, and every page is such high quality. So obviously everything's a pretty sensory experience. I'm still reading Snow as well, and I'm still a lot of books kind of on the go all at the same time.
I'm glad to hear you admit that. I usually have about 5, so that's great.
Yeah. I never used to. It's new. And I think it's because now when something comes out, I want to know straight away. So I'll read like the first bit to get a feel. But then I realize, oops, I didn't finish that one. And then I go back and but I have to be careful because I take voices on. So if I read something when I'm writing, I will just mimic.
Right.
And I can't do that because then it won't be me.
Yeah.
Ugh. So I have to kind of have an emptiness before I can
let your voice come.
Yeah. And audiobooks, I quite like going backwards and hearing some that I never read. Like Alice Pong, I read. She wrote I can't remember the name of that one right now. Lucinda. Anyway, so I've listened to, and Melina Marchietta, and all of those on audiobook have been really good to listen to try and catch up on some I missed out on when I was a young adult, because I didn't read much young adult fiction. Yeah. That was good. Like the longest answer to a small question. No,
it's good because you're a reader. That's good. Tell me, who would you get if you could to read the audiobook of Peter? If you could get anyone in the world, who would it be?
It would be, oh my goodness, I can't even, it'd be, and I'm just trying to think of her name now. She was in Drama Queens, and it's with Michelle Law, and her name's obviously gone out of my head because that's what always happens to me. And she's got like short red, she also was in Santa Clarita Diet. And
so if I Google,
Santa. This is terrible of me.
Santa what diet? Santa Clarita
Diet.
Yeah,
and she's the teenage. She's the girl in that. She's like the most like me that I see like on TV. I think if someone was, but that's me, and I know that she's such a good actress. She'd be able to do.
So not Drew Barrymore, Liv Hewson.
Yeah, Liv Hewson.
So
sorry that I forgot her name. I'm bad with names.
That's all right. She played Abby Diamond. Okay.
Yeah. And I think she could do a really good job of having that Australian young voice.
Yeah.
But I think she's got such depth in everything that she's done that she would, maybe I just like her. I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I can't imagine now. I can't imagine having, someone read Peter Lyre out. That would be amazing.
And so that would be brilliant. And thinking about talking to somebody the other day, I read something the other day, and also talking to Kevin Clare, who talked about a lot of millennials read his stories, but in grabs. And then the article I read was that you really need to write these days in 20-minute scenes as opposed to the longer epic fantasies, that we would have been used to as kids. So interesting.
Yeah, well, that's like a long Sonic Ink, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just have to spread the 4 minutes that we do, make them into 20, and that's how long you've got to grab someone.
Yeah.
I never realized one thing I did learn, and I have learned since writing from the first book, is that everything that comes after the minute you publish the book or whatever the review process, so much is done on the first two chapters, 1, 2, maybe 3,
right?
Because you can't talk about anything else either.
Yeah.
It's a spoiler.
Yes.
And so all your interviews are based on those first couple of chapters as well. I didn't kind of put that together, I think. Like I knew that they were important to get a contract.
Yes.
But I didn't know that they would be important forevermore. And that's why they're important. The editors need to pitch using those. And then reviewers may only read a couple. Yeah. And then it's all you're allowed to talk about. Whoa.
Yeah, that
pressure.
Yeah, I'll say. So I need to get that opening line just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. No pressure at all. Okay, how are we going? Have I covered everything? As an advocate for the neurodivergent community, you are doing a brilliant job.
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely to hear. I don't feel like I do a lot.
Being yourself and being honest and open about the things that are part of your day and the things that you struggle with and the things that you're successful with makes neurodivergence just a part of everybody's life.
I hope so, because I do put a lot of garbage up on Twitter, I tell you, and I'm pretty open about the troubles and the mistakes, because I think hiding. And as a mum, you'll know if
Yes.
people never speak of the troubles you go through
Yeah.
or the things you find hard, they become hidden. And when they're hidden, they're so powerful. They have like
Yes.
10 times more power.
Mm.
The more we just outwardly process, which is my
Yes.
my jam, and it's like out, everything, get it out. You know, burdens shared and all that. It's so much easier every day knowing that there are people there to catch you or to just sympathize and acknowledge.
That's
Yeah.
it, just to be seen, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be seen and heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, Anna, what's next for you? What is the rest of 2021 hold?
I think I would be editing the rest of Tearing Myself Together.
Yep.
I have my next novel. I mean, I have some others, but I think the other one I've got was too old in its age bracket. So I'll just leave that one there, which I wrote and submitted at the same time as Tearing Myself Together. And I said, do you want to just choose? Because I didn't know which was better.
Yep.
And so there's that one there ready if it's ever comes up. But I have another one planned, and it is based on an esports team, because when you get random passions, you should try and figure out what you're going to do with them. And it's going to be so cool. It's like, young adults who think they're going to make it big, but something goes entirely wrong.
Yeah.
And I just have this beginning and end scene that keep coming into my head, and I just need to hear how that's going to pan out. And then I'm going to spend a lot of time percolating that one before I sit down and write it in a mad fury, because I need my life to be in the right place where I can focus on it and not have other demands. So I will try and get that one down so it's ready before Tearing Myself comes out, I think, because then again I'll feel like I've got something ready to go because it's quite exhausting, that process, the releasing launching process is difficult. And I think if I feel like plus I'll just write stuff, because you can't not really.
That's
and
it.
doing the sonic ink is good, because it's that I'm practicing. I feel like I'm practicing skills and how to so that hopefully I can offer something slightly different. Whether or not they'll ever take my other stories, maybe. I've got a picture book. I've got a picture book that I don't know how to pitch it. I think I need to lean on my picture book friends.
Yes.
Someone's
quite different.
offered.
Yes.
Yeah, but I've nailed like the story. I feel like I finally,
Fantastic.
and that took years. God, far out there hard.
So such few
I don't know how you do
words
it.
makes it even more difficult. Every single word is like, do I keep it, do I not?
It's like the number of pages for me. It's like it's always going to be too many or too few. And I hadn't figured out how to nail such a message in. You've got to be so clear what you do. Wow.
Yes.
All of my hats are off.
Yes.
Picture
All
book
power to
writers.
picture book writers.
You do an amazing job. I don't know how you do it. And so if I can figure out how to actually put that forward to Danielle, hey, that'd be a good thing to do. Maybe I should do that this week. Thanks for reminding me.
No worries. Look out, Danielle. It's on its way.
I'll write that on my hand. Yeah. PB. All right, there we go.
There it is. Anna Whateley, where can people find you online? Everywhere. She's everywhere.
Twitter at Anna Whateley, and I'm on Instagram at Anna Whateley Writer. There's probably an underscore in there. And I'm on YouTube as either Anna Whateley or Wild Things, WT, or Wild Things. That's my gaming name. I don't know how I got in really early I've played Minecraft for over 10 years. So I've got like the username that no one can get. There's no numbers, nothing. It's like just Wild Things. So on my gaming servers, if anyone is gaming, I'm Wild Things WT on the American server, and just Wild Things, I think, on the Oceania server, and on Twitch, Wild Things WT. But it'll come up with Anna Whateley as well. So, and I think all the links are on my link tree. Linked from my Twitter and Instagram and Discord. And so you can find me on there too if you want to ring me and chat, because Discord's super fun. I've learnt that. It's a whole new world.
It is a whole new world. I know there was one of the guys on Twitter who is an Australian writer, also a gamer, said he was going to do an Australian Discord with the writers. And of course, old people like me, luckily I did know because my son uses Discord, but a few people were saying, oh no, but it's a really great.
Tell me who that is. You can tell me later.
I'll tell you later.
I should join in on that one, because I'm on an ADHD one, but it's so furious. I can't do it. It's too many people and too many topics and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm on some young adult ones, some actual kids. Like I play with a lot of 13-year-old kids.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. They're so hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, one of my best friends now is like a 19-year-old in Jamaica. We talk for hours a day.
Yeah.
And he's just like telling me, I'm like, bruh. He's like, how, bruh, man? No, that's just because. And he just tells me, like, I get such an insight into a whole other world I would never. And he's going to be in my next novel, I've told him.
Yeah.
But I'm very open about who I am, always,
Yes.
straight up.
Yes.
Because they all laugh that I'm so
no
terrified that they'll
Yes.
think I'm like this weird dirty old woman in Australia calling them up.
Yeah.
So no, they know who I am and they make their choices.
Very good. And your books are available ebook and paperbacks and online everywhere?
In Australia and New Zealand. International rights are not yet sold. Please,
Okay.
someone buy them, because it's really hard to get my book overseas. Book Depository sold out. I don't know if they've got any more stock. And so Amazon America can't have it. But Australia, you can have Kindle, I believe,
Right.
and the electronic versions. And there are 2 chapters you can read for free on the Allen and Unwin website,
Excellent.
if anyone just wants a taster.
Yes,
first
and
2
I recommend
chapters.
that they do that. Read those first 2 chapters.
It's
Yeah,
a really
fantastic.
good book.
It is
I'm
a really
really
good
proud
book.
of Peter Lyre.
Yeah, I'm recommending it to everybody. I'm saying,
Oh,
you've got to
thank
read
you.
this. Send it down to my niece and said, you've got to read this. Send it out to my other niece and said, you got to read this.
And I keep giving it
Yeah.
away. Like I'm just like, however you get hold of it. Libraries
Yes.
have got copies.
Ask your library for it. That's a
Borrow.
good thing. Yeah.
You know, as long as people get a chance to read the stories they need.
Yeah.
And Please Don't Hug Me by
Yeah.
Kay Kerr.
Yes.
Also read that too, because then you get
Yeah.
a whole other version of
Yes. Yes.
And we're releasing a newsletter very soon that no one's allowed to know. But by the time this comes out, we might have mentioned it.
Absolutely.
Called The
this will be a few
Overshare.
weeks out.
So subscribe to
Nice.
that, and then you can get a free copy of Peter Lyre and Please Don't Hug Me.
Ooh,
Because we're doing
very
a
good.
competition.
Yeah.
I didn't plan to plug that either. Newsletter.
I love a giveaway.
Yay.
No, that'll work because this will be a few weeks out.
Excellent.
Very
Sorry.
good. And I thank you so much for. I can edit that out if you don't want to tell.
No. I'm just thinking, stop talking, Anna, because she probably needs to end the thing.
Oh no.
Yep.
No, I've got my daughter visiting later this afternoon, and we're going to be talking all things Chickabella, so all good. I'm happy, which is lovely. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you too. What a great couple of years we've had.
It's been amazing. Yeah.
Go Oz Writes. Go 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Oz Writers.
Just awesome. When I look at what everybody has done since Emily said, hey, we get together, because I was feeling very much like which was the American timeline was just not quite right. Some fantastic authors. And, there's a couple of Kiwi authors who were fantastic.
Is this the previous hashtag? Because I wasn't on.
No, this was just that I
Oh.
was joining into, there was the Right Fight Gift Club, and Clementine Fraser is
I
a
didn't
Kiwi
know
author who's just released Dustbound, which is, again, an amazing book.
Oh, Clementine. I know
Yes,
Clementine.
she's
Yeah.
lovely. And she was kind of in the southern hemisphere, but still those few hours out. And so you'd get up and you'd want to get all excited, and they're all going to bed. And you think, oh, damn, I missed all those conversations.
Oh.
Damn. They were welcoming, but you kind of were on the end of stuff.
Yeah.
So Emily said, are you interested? I said, hell yeah. So
Yeah.
away we went, didn't we?
And that's where, and I joined in after all of
Yes.
that work was done.
Yes.
And that's back when I used to write early.
In the morning.
Actually, I didn't even have Twitter when I was writing at from 5 o'clock in the morning, because of Peter Lyre. Obviously, a lot of hours were put in for it to be written that fast. I didn't have
Yes.
any Twitter.
Yep.
Really. I was very much a baby. Didn't even know the support that could have been there. Whereas
It's
now
a
I spend all my
fantastic
time on
community.
Twitter instead of writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Me
I'm back.
too.
I feel like I'm back. I had
Good.
that big break where I felt
Yep.
I checked in every now and then to just be like, hi, everyone. I didn't apologize. I didn't think that would be fair to everyone to apologize. So I didn't want everyone to try and make me feel better.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I just couldn't do it. And now I feel like I'm home, and the feeling of coming home to Twitter. That probably sounds really weird to other people.
No,
But
not to
far
me.
out, the best
Yeah.
people in the world,
They are.
you guys, are
Yeah.
just everything. So there you go. Thank
There
you.
you go. Thanks, Anna. All right. We will wind it up now, and we'll say thank you for all the time that you've given us. And you can find Anna on all those places, and look out for her new book, Tearing Yourself Together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
No worries. Bye.
So what can I say, Anna? Thank you so much for what was an amazing interview, and thank you, Veronica, for making the interview so fantastic. So much information, so much reason, or sort of say so many reasons to smile, and such a wonderful insight into a whole wave of energy that's just surging forward, really, in all these different aspects of creativity and mediums. And wow. Yeah, so thank you so much, Anna, for being a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast. It was an absolute honour.
And Anna was one of our earlier supporters too, putting her book up on the website. So, yeah, very good, very good.
Well,
Strong
I hope
voice.
that, moving forward, when the new features do come out, which aren't too far off, then maybe, who knows, Anna might want to, we might want to get in contact with Anna, and maybe she'll want to play a part in that as well. So you never know.
Yeah.
But shall we go to some quotes for
Absolutely.
this episode number 36?
Yes. And can I start with one of my absolutely favourite people that I love to quote, which is Maya Angelou, and she's, as most people would know, or many people would know, an American poet, a memoirist, and a civil rights activist. So with 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and a list of plays, and lots and lots of things. So from Maya, words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning.
Very interesting, because the human voice in this instance may just mean that internal voice.
Yeah, that's it. And I figured, seeing as we've been chatting about own voices, words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. And I just like that one.
And I think you'll agree that depending on the type of book you're reading, because obviously some sentences are written as they should be as part of the story, and they produce information and that moves the story along. That's fantastic. That's what a great book is. But then there's some books that trigger you to think a little bit more, because that may be their intent. And so there may be symbolism, there may be hidden symbolism within phrases or metaphors, who knows. But when you read those certain stories that have a reliance on that, then there's these sentences that you might read 5 times mentally, and each time it will, until it finds a way to shine through, and then often for me it brings this whole new awareness, a whole new knowledge. Yeah. And which is odd, because the words are just words, and the sentiment in a sentence is just a sentiment, but by reading it 5 times you spin around the concept of the sentence. And so that's so I think that the power is speaking it in your mind, or even speaking it out loud, because they're not just words on paper, are they? They're forms of communication, those words.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, of course, it just reminds me of some homework that I'm doing for a course for the Australian Writers Centre. Of course, I'm doing another course, fantasy, science fiction and more, and I'll tell you how I'm going after I start that. One of the pre-reading things that we have to read is J.R.R. Tolkien on fairy stories. Now, I'll have to look up where the excerpt is from. It sounds like it was an essay that he wrote at university. Some of it is so dense in that within each sentence is a world of understanding. So when you said we have to read the sentence over, I thought, oh yes, I've had a few of those sentences that I've had to read over and over and think, what is he saying there? And a couple of them I've actually read aloud to have it make sense to me. So really interesting.
I do find it fascinating, and I think there's equal weight, because I've read sentences that have got 4 words that just get to the point, that punch harder than a bullet to the stomach. And then you'll have a sentence that has 35 words in it, and you have to try and navigate the rhythm, like discover the rhythm. And once you discover the rhythm, then the relationship between each word finds its place. And then once you discover the relationship between the words, then the symbolism begins to emerge, and how the symbol represents, or how the symbol interacts with the other symbols that have emerged. And that's most times there's an intention behind that cryptic writing to promote that need to investigate how those words turn into symbols, and what those symbols do to us emotionally and psychologically, and perhaps spiritually. But both have the same power. And that's why the words are just, that's the amazing thing about words, and an amazing thing about the different uses that authors find with the words or the different techniques they might use to tell a good story. Because, some authors will throw a completely cryptic symbolic sentence followed by a 3-word sentence that just goes pow. But the pow doesn't work until the other part. But the other part doesn't work without the pow. And they're definitely not just little words on paper.
No.
For any book. Speaking of words on paper,
give us a quote, Darren.
Yes, I've got one from. Now this one's actually from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Right.
And I thought, so the subject of my 2 little quotes today, I don't know, I thought about empathy because I like to think that that's one of the things we can discover by reading books by voices that aren't necessarily, something that's common to us. So we're discovering those different ways of life, those different viewpoints of reality, those different experiences that sometimes that's something books can only give because you really get into the mind, you get into their perceptions, all those things. So humans aren't as good as we should be in our capacity to empathise with feelings and thoughts of others, be they humans or other animals on Earth. So maybe part of our formal education should be training in empathy. Imagine how different the world would be if, in fact, that were reading, writing, arithmetic and empathy.
Yeah.
And
that would be absolutely amazing.
I think so, definitely.
Oh.
Yes, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and a quietly powerful statement, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we could talk about empathy for hours, and we might do that one session. Talk about
absolutely.
Books. Yeah, empathy. So let me give you my second quote. This is an anonymous one. Be yourself. That is something that you can do better than any other. Listen to the inward voice and bravely obey that.
Oh, and what bravery it takes.
It certainly does.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth in that little phrase, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, we're going the deep and meaningful. What's your number 2?
I was just thinking, that bravery that's needed to embrace yourself and to be yourself.
And to listen to that voice, yeah.
And to listen to that voice, where do you draw the energy for that bravery? Because all around you, I suppose there's a lot of inspiration, but there's a lot there that can sort of, dampen that desire to be yourself, because sometimes being yourself appears to be a little bit risky or appears to maybe have negative consequences. But no, I think you have to try and be yourself, because at the end of the day, who else are you?
Exactly. And, you are the expert at being yourself, really. So
well, no, I'm still working out my instruction manual. I can promise you that. I'll admit to being who I am, but if you want to know how I operate, I don't know which pages to refer to just yet. Maybe chapter 3 in the manual. There's something there about being forgetful. No. So my second quote, now it's by a person called Ira Glass. Now, forgive me, listeners, I didn't look into who this person was, but the quote goes as follows. The story is a machine for empathy. In contrast to logic or reason, a story is about emotion that gets staged over a sequence of dramatic moments. So you empathise with the characters without really thinking about it too much. It is a really powerful tool for imagining yourself in other people's situations. And I think that spells it out eloquently, simply, and to the point. And that is, that's the power of stories and the empathy that they can draw from the reader.
Yeah. Yeah, nice quotes this week.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. Yeah.
What else have we got happening? Anything else to chat about? I think we've got it covered.
I think for episode 36, it's been a fantastic, fun show.
It is. It's just got my brain thinking all the quotes and the thinking about own voices and the interview with Anna. She was just great.
See, and here's the power of words. So just then, we both shared a moment where we were silent.
Yes.
But I know for me, I was caught up in a couple of those quotes and already I'm thinking about things. And I suspect you were too.
Yes.
However, the first thing that popped to mind when I realised that was happening was awkward silence. Now, that's 2 words.
Yes.
But what they represent, maybe they represent a perception for certain mediums like a podcast or live radio or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny how a moment that is actually really beautiful where you're suddenly going, wow. But it's funny that there's the different power of two words.
Yeah.
Awkward silence, and suddenly I felt, oh no, got to say something. It's like, no,
You've got to fill that blank spot quick.
Oh no, there was 1 to 2 seconds there where we let the words just rest there in the ambience.
Yeah. See, somebody else can put us on pause, and that's okay.
Yeah. So from now on, listeners, if you ever hear me do, I'm claiming it's because I'm thinking really deep thoughts. The plan is now in action.
In action, yeah. I don't know about that. We'll see. We will see.
Well, I think it's time for our tagline.
Look, it is. And if people did enjoy that episode, we would love to have some stars on iTunes or your favourite podcasting platform. And, send us a little review or an email, anything from the website. You can find us at AustralianBookLovers.com. On Twitter, we are at Australian Books, and on Facebook and Instagram, we are at Australian Book Lovers. And, of course, all of the podcasts are also on YouTube in case people want to have a look. And I do put some of the book covers up there so you can watch those and look at the book covers while you're listening to us if you prefer to have something a little bit more visual.
Yes, and while watching the news, you might think you're either in Queensland or Victoria or Western Australia and everyone's got their own thing. I hope that by exploring all the beautiful stories that our wonderful Australian authors are writing, and to all the amazingly just awesome readers out there that are devouring all these great tales, hopefully it's a moment just to reflect that we are just Australian, and don't let anybody get in the way of that, because that's the whole goal of, we want to be... The goal of this website is to celebrate Australian authors and bring our talent to the whole globe.
Yeah.
And the last thing we need is to be separating ourselves here in our beautiful country. So, and I think readers and writers, they're at the forefront, or all artists, I think, are at the forefront of making sure that doesn't happen. So turn off the news, read a good book, and listen to a podcast. Go check out the kookaburras, hunt down a wallaby or a kangaroo, get a good meat pie, and and make sure it is a good
kangaroo, and then get a meat pie.
Oh yeah, no, I suppose that was the wrong order. It's easy for me to say because around the corner we got lots of kangaroos, even though it's the main road, but they all live next to the main road. So
right.
If I'm going to the bakery, I said I don't eat kangaroo.
A lot of people do though. It's,
true, yeah. But the idea of seeing kangaroos didn't inspire my meat pie. But
as a vegetarian, that always sort of throws me out. But
should I say, go to a great bakery?
Go to a great bakery.
Has
yes.
a whole range of selections. Good old, and I think that's a pretty Aussie thing, is the bakery.
It is. It is meat pies, and yes, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars. Isn't that what it was? Football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars. That was the ad.
The 7-course meal?
No, that was...
Six pack and a pie?
That just shows you how old I am. Football, kangaroos and Holden. I can't remember. It was an ad in the olden days. Someone write in and tell us which ad it was, or I'll try and remember for next time. Okay. But enough faffing on about us.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about the shocking VB ads that came through the 80s and 90s with a tune that's still, a matter of fact, I got it now.
Oh, yeah, we're moving on.
We are moving on. So,
and we're going to say take care for now, and remember...
in our own voices, to read more Aussie books.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for episode 36, and we can't wait to join you for episode 37. Take care, everybody.
Bye for now.
Hi, I'm Hayley Walsh, author of Making March in Crayons and Chaos, but I'm here today to share with you my review of historical fiction book titled Discerning Grace. Historical fiction is not usually a genre I tend to pick up and read, but I'm so glad I did. Discerning Grace by Emma Lombard has it all: family drama, betrayal, adventure, camaraderie, suspense, and love. What more could you want in a good book? The book is the first in the White Sails series, so you have been warned, my friend. If you read this book, you will be waiting eagerly for books 2 and 3. The author takes us back to London in the 1800s, where we meet our protagonist. Young Grace Baxter is full of spunk and decides to flee from her lot in life after discovering her family has promised the disgusting Lord Silverton her hand in marriage. She flees disguised as a lad and subsequently finds herself being lured aboard the HMS Discerning by a charismatic recruiter named Gilly. It's the perfect disguise, and she agrees as she has nothing to lose. She already has Gilly fooled, so why not? Once aboard, she meets handsome Lieutenant Seamus Fitzwilliam, who is second in command. Grace is headstrong and more than capable of keeping up with her fellow young men on the ship. Only problem is, her identity and gender are revealed when she is punished, pants down, waiting to be flogged in front of her fellow seamen. Seamus quickly vows to protect Grace from harm, but is she the only one who needs protecting? For lovers of adventure, romance, intrigue and period drama, this book is most definitely for you. Emma has created engaging characters, unsuspecting twists and turns, romance and heart-stopping adventure on the high seas. If you are a fan of historical fiction, I highly recommend this well-written and entertaining book that will have you turning the pages. The book can be found on the Australian Book Lovers website. I give it 5 stars.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.